Discover the brain-first approach to recovery with Emergo Academy and join our Recovery Club. Surround yourself with a supportive community free of guilt and shame and gain access to coaches and recovery experts with lived experience. Dave and Susan Kenney, co-founders of Emergo Academy, have developed these methodologies over the last 15 years. And as a member of the Recovery Club, you get exclusive access and resources to achieve your recovery goals and relieve the suffering. Stay up to date with live group meetings, Emergo TV updates, and 24/7 access to the private Recovery Club. Visit emergoacademy.com and join the Recovery Club today.
Welcome to another edition of Emergo TV Live. You'll notice that I'm in a turtleneck today. That's because the rest of the world is celebrating spring, but here in Calgary, Mother Nature decided to give us a really big dump of snow. I'm Susan Kenney.
I was just going to say, who are you? I'm Dave Kenney. We are with Emergo Academy, and welcome to Emergo TV, where we discuss everything and anything regarding recovery, addiction, substances, behaviors, any challenge that you have in your life or your family or a loved one, and we take questions and answers. But sometimes we flip that. We're going to do the Q&A later today, and we're going to bring up a subject later today. But first, we want to bring our guest on, who is also our producer, but we got to know him, Nate Kelly. And Nate, why don't you pop on with us here? And
Hi, guys.
Nate is our Emergo TV producer with the mostest and the best and all that stuff. And we got to know you, Nate, from your podcast that you run. And you want to what you want to just plug? Go ahead, plug your podcast, and we'll dive in.
Yeah, we got introduced through the Sobriety Diaries, which is what started this whole journey for me, aside from recovery, now this entrepreneurship journey and this tech stuff, this new part of my life, leaving corporate America and taking this risk on myself and on my talents has been quite the journey. But you and Susan came on to the Sobriety Diaries to share your story and share the brain first approach. And we really just hit it off and, started discussions on collaborating together. And now here we are with Emergo TV.
Well, we've invited you because we're not chatting with others other than just Susan and I. She gets bored talking to me. And you have a personal journey. And that's one of the reasons why we invited you on today, is to share your personal journey on recovery and
why are you so darn connected? Why is it important to you? Why did you start the podcast? All of that.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yes.
There you go. We'll be quiet now for the next 15 minutes if you answer that.
Yeah. Just sit back and relax.
Yeah, this world of recovery is important to you. Why?
It is, yes. I started my recovery journey in a inpatient treatment facility. I did 10 days in detox and then an additional 30 days inpatient. And it was a 12-step based treatment center. And, I was in the rooms of a 12-step program for several years, to start my recovery. And, then kind of evolved in my own recovery and added different modalities. But to begin with, that was really the only thing I knew. And the one thing that I still take from that experience and that way of recovery is the connection with other people. And, we hear so often that the opposite of addiction is connection and establishing meaningful relationships with people. And the podcast and my recovery, during the pandemic really was a time where that was kind of ripped away from me. And interacting with other alcoholics and addicts. I'm a big hugger, so when I was at meetings, I was always hugging people and shaking people's hands and, you know, talking personal, not necessarily recovery always chatter. So when that halted because of lockdown, I was left with this kind of empty space of that human connection. And I found out quickly that it was a really important part of my recovery. So that's what prompted the podcast to start, and that's what really kind of ding ding like light bulb moment for me was that was the most important part of my recovery is the human connection and forming those tight, lasting relationships. So, it kind of goes
How,
hand
how
in
long? How long
hand.
have you? How long have you been in recovery, Nate?
I celebrated 8 years in October, so like 8.5 now.
So
So, so
a
I,
lot
I
of people.
think
A lot,
doing
sorry, go ahead.
something right and connection and connection is the number one priority for me. Yeah.
And how have you done that since? Are you still going to meetings and things, or how do you bring connection and people into your life in this I call it a second chapter of life in this
Yeah.
world of recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this beautiful technology now that is boundless, right? We can connect with people all over the world. And I utilize that to my advantage to record the podcast, to reach out to other, recovery and sobriety influencers. There is a beautiful sort of social media recovery network that I'm a part of, and that I get guests for the show, and that I meet people and connect on a personal level, like I did with you guys. So I think utilizing our resources and technology these days is super important. I am not at meetings as much as I was in the beginning, um, but I still find myself there on, if a friend is speaking or if it's an anniversary of some kind, to keep those connections. I'm not as reliant on a daily meeting for my recovery and my sanity anymore. But I use the room still for action and
Nate, we're kind of losing you at every now and then. You're very choppy tonight, so just bear with us if we like you freeze up. But Susan, what
uh-oh.
questions you have for Nate?
I think you made a brilliant statement is this online world that none of us would have guessed if we went back 5 years ago now. And I love that you figured out really, really quickly when everything shut down, when there was lockdowns, that, hey, I need this. And you know that it's one of the 5 principles that we talk about in actualized recovery is connections. It's imperative, right? We need to have other people in our lives. And I also love what you said, like that's how we met. We felt an instant connection with you, and we've been so happy to call you a friend ever since we met online. Like your personality, first of all, is so warm and inviting that it just lends itself. So
Mhm.
I'm so pleased that the COVID lockdown had an influence on you and that you get to podcast and you get to help other people.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think that, I often say that if there was one positive thing that we can take from COVID was this push to digitize,
Mhm.
this form of communication, or bringing people online that weren't before, and
Mm.
learning how to use Zoom. And my mom knows how to use Zoom now, and she probably never would have been interested in that before. But I
Right.
think, yeah, if we can take one thing positive from that, then it is this ability now to reach out and touch people worldwide.
Yeah.
Nate, I want to take you back 8.5 years ago, and you've just started into you've just come out of your program that you're in to begin or kickstart or launch your recovery, and that can be scary those first few days. What was the hardest part of the first few days for you? The first week for you?
I was really scared about establishing routines. Like, once I got out of treatment, it's such a protected
Hmm.
world when you get sober inside of the four walls of a facility. And they wake you up in the morning. You eat when they tell you to. You go to meetings when they tell you to. So it is a very protected world, and I was nervous to take and apply it to the real world and apply it to my own life. So that was most nervous about. I will say, though, the program that I went to was really great about to lay out those plans prior to leaving their four walls. I got out of treatment a week before Thanksgiving, so it was right before the holidays, uh, which can also be sort of a triggering time for people. A
Mhm.
lot of family time, time off work, etc. So they did a really good job about laying the groundwork for daily routines, meeting schedules. So, I got out, I think around lunchtime from the treatment center. I went home, I got a shower, I took a nap, and I went directly to a meeting. So, just taking what I learned in the rooms and applying it to my daily life, and trying not to second guess things, and trying not to um, you know, come up with my own thoughts, really, as crazy as that sounds. But,
Yeah.
my brain was sort of broken, and my thinking and decision making wasn't clear or good at that time. So trusting others, utilizing those sort of pre-made plans and schedules in the first few months, but really up to a year, I think is important. And it can kind of help to eliminate those fears.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that was something we stressed in our recovery program is the importance of structure and knowing what you're going to do the night before sets you up for whether or not you're going to be successful in the morning, and knowing what you need to do when you get out of bed, like having it. So we had a very the same morning routine, the same evening routine for everybody. And so they often people said that was the saving grace, right? I went home and I just kept doing the same thing because it was so ingrained. And I love what you said too. I had a broken brain.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you when you're using substances or when you're doing behaviors, it creates these brain patterns that are broken. So I love when you said that.
In one or two or three words, best part of your living in recovery is.
One or two or three. I would say uh, mending broken relationships.
All right. So, but that's the best part is having relationships. Then is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nate, thanks for hanging out, and come on back because we've got a break right now. As you know, you're the one who's got to put the break on, and then we're going to come back and we're going to dive into
Yes.
podcasting. So let's take the break, and I'll see everybody in a minute.
Discover
Sounds
the
good.
brain-first approach to recovery with Emergo Academy and join our recovery club. Surround yourself with a supportive community free of guilt and shame and gain access to coaches and recovery experts with lived experience. Dave and Susan Kenney, co-founders of Emergo Academy, have developed these methodologies over the last 15 years. And as a member of the Recovery Club, you get exclusive access and resources to achieve your recovery goals and relieve the suffering. Stay up to date with live group meetings, Emergo TV updates, and 24/7 access to the private Recovery Club. Visit emergoacademy.com and join the Recovery Club today.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Emergo TV. I'm Dave Kenney.
And I'm Susan Kenney.
And we got Nate Kelly with us. And we're
Put on your different hat now, Nate.
We're going to speak for the next 30 minutes
I know.
on podcasting. But before we do that, let me just do a proper professional introduction. I want you to meet Nate Kelly, the podcasting pro, published author. Hang on a second. I'm supposed to have this ready. Published author right there.
Have an amazing book.
The book looks a little beat up because I've been reading it a little while. I sat on it this afternoon. But through your mentorship, transformation courses, and your new book, The Podcast Revolution, Nate guides individuals in crafting compelling podcasts. But beyond the microphone, Nate's story is one of resilience and personal growth through his 8+ and who knows when you're watching this, years of recovery. He now dedicates the platform to sharing stories of others in recovery. And your goal is to inspire those still struggling while helping them embrace their authentic selves. And your podcast is the Sobriety Diaries. And there's so much more. But Nate is the podcast guru. And I'm excited. I love this stuff. So I'm like, I like the other stuff too. I'm looking forward to chatting with you and picking your brain, Nate.
I'm here for it. I love talking all things recovery and tech. And when I get to combine them, even better.
So you just shared with us that the pandemic caused you to make there was obviously lifestyle shifts for all of us, but you jumped on that and created your podcast. But now with your book and everything else, you coach people, you do the turnkey solution like you'd work with us where we have you do everything, but you also empower people to run their own podcast. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah. Each client is definitely kind of a personalized approach. I help people who are in the planning phase or say, I might want to start a podcast and don't have any idea of even their topic or genre. Or, I help folks like you who have an established, business or client base who want to add podcasting as sort of a additional marketing tactic. So all across the board, everything, from audio podcasting, video, YouTube production, live streaming production, and that, has evolved based on different clients I've worked with and, sort of fine tuning my skills in different areas of tech and media. And it's just a joy, to be able to get to do something I love so much,
So,
as a career.
as you know,
Love it.
we train coaches, as you know, a recovery coach, crisis and recovery coaches. But this question is for any coach. I think the answer is yes. Would you recommend podcasting for their coaching business? I think the answer is yes. We believe in that. But why? Why is it beneficial for a coach?
Is it yes?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's benefit for a coach, either new or established, or do you have different expectations for different levels, entry levels for coaching? What do you recommend?
It is such a powerful tactic for coaches and mentors. Yes, the answer is 100% yes. It has so many benefits, establishing kind of that community of your peers and potential clients. You can do things like this and kind of create a library of your knowledge and your content, modules, chapters of your book, anything that sort of adds to your coaching or curriculum. It is podcasting is quickly become the most trusted form of online content, I think, as kind of the formal like authority figure. And I work, I'd say, probably with 80 or 90% of coaches or mentors or folks who are in that sort of line of work. And we see their numbers just skyrocket once they dive into podcasting.
I can attest to this. So we started our podcast 2019, I think, like the fall of 2019, and had no expectations. Like we really didn't know what to expect at all. And what happened was beyond anything we could have imagined in terms of being able to reach people, being able to connect with people, becoming an authority. And we still ran the residential program at that time. So in our sales cycle, we were having the same conversation over and over and over again. But there was different, like some were parents, or some were the person themselves, or somebody was struggling with a certain specific thing. So as we started to add the podcast, it was so easy to respond to somebody either by email or send them a quick text or connect with them and say, hey, episode number such and such in the podcast may be something that you'd want to listen to. And then let's connect after that. More often than not, Nate, we would wake up the next day and there would be either a text or an email saying, I want to come to your program. When can I get in? So it blew our minds, actually.
Had somebody ask me for my autograph.
Seriously, people, like, that's true. Somebody showed up and asked for our autograph, and we were
because
like,
they listened to about, I think we were at like 18. They'd listen to at least a dozen of the podcasts. But it really did change, which we did not understand. And I want to stress this. I love what you said, to make us the authority. Yeah. It really did change it. And we got to craft the message each week. And we create, okay, this is coming up with parents of adult children. So we created a podcast about it, not understanding for the next 6 months, it was going to be one of the most valuable assets we made because we shared it with all the parents.
We still share it.
So let me go to your book. You've by the way, they got to buy the, where can they buy the book? Your book. Where can they get your book?
You can buy the book at podcastrevolutionbook.com, or you can go to podcastnate.com. It's right on the front page. You can purchase through the website.
And here's why I recommend it, because you've systematically gone through. If I'm interested in a podcast, you've systematically gone through. But I want you to touch on a couple things. First section, you talk about a plan. So
yes.
What do you mean by when you're putting a podcast together? Like, what plan should I go out and worry about what? Like, for me, I want to first thing I want to do is go figure out what mic I want to buy. Is that what you mean by the plan?
Yeah. Equipment's a big thing, and that's like the fun part of it. So yes, that's part of planning. But planning in a more general sense, I mentioned earlier, some people come and they have really no idea of what they would want to start a podcast on. And, honestly, I would recommend for those folks to kind of spend some time contemplating what are your interests? What things do you love in life? I think if you're going to produce a weekly podcast, it has to be surrounding a topic that you can talk to anyone about. You can talk to a stranger at the grocery store, or your grandma for hours, something you're so passionate about and you love and that you want to educate yourself more on, and really almost just becomes a part of your life, like your daily being. Like it has to be something that you're that passionate about, because trust me, when you're producing weekly episodes, your ideas start to run out. So if it's not something that you live and breathe, it's going to be difficult to keep that production schedule up. So in the first section of the book, planning, that's more so what we're talking about. And then once we establish that theme or topic, then we can start planning content and laying out our 6 to 8 week content calendar and what the format of the show will be. Is it a single host? Is it a guest style interview show? Is it co-hosted? And what format sort of applies best to your theme or your topic. So there are different levels of planning that we get into place before we move forward to things like buying equipment or setting up your home studio, or our demos of editing, our demos of recording techniques, things like that. So laying the groundwork in the planning section.
Okay, when you're talking about being passionate about it, I have to the first thing that popped into my mind was Forrest Gump, the movie, and Bubba, his friend back,
Yes.
shrimp, Creole shrimp,
Yes.
because he could
Shrimp.
talk about
Yes.
anything shrimp forever and ever. And that was the
That's
first thing
so
he did.
good. I'm
And
gonna
the
steal
other,
that actually. I'm gonna
oh,
say
I
you
think
need to
you
be the
should.
Bubba Gump of your industry.
You gotta love shrimp. What is your shrimp?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the other thing I thought
Perfect.
of is it's about your genius, and often people don't understand that they have a genius, but I think that's the
Yeah.
connection, right? Is what is your genius and what does the world need?
How does somebody find topics? You talk about a
That's
content calendar for 6 or 8 weeks. How does somebody? Okay, Susan and I are a brain of two. Big deal. How do we create a content calendar that the masses are interested in? How do you do that?
Well, the beautiful thing again about technology these days is we can utilize AI for some of these things, and particularly around content planning and scripting. Now, I do not recommend, of course, scripting every word of your show. You will sound like a robot and you're not going to be engaging with your audience at all. But you can use AI to help generate an outline of things that you want to discuss, speaking points, bullet points of things related to your show's topic. So I offer actually an AI course that we go in and you sort of learn how to train your AI to understand what you're looking for and to understand, what industry you're in and things like, that can train your AI to understand what it's looking for. So content planning is a huge or using AI for content planning is a huge time saver and something I recommend to all my clients. But we want to have that we can look at a glance or share with your team or share with the potential guest of the podcast and say, hey, these are the topics for the upcoming episodes. Do any of them speak to you more? Which topic do you think you'd want to discuss on the show? It can help if you have people assisting you in editing or post production, taking a look at the content calendar. So the benefits of having your content laid out weeks in advance are endless. But AI is a big time saver now for many aspects, really, of content planning or podcast planning.
I like to coach some of our coaches to use social media too. So if you come up with 6 topics, throw it out as a poll on your social media. People love
Yes.
participating. They love doing that. They love being part of it. First of all, you engage your community, you bring them in a little bit more, and you learn and you begin to learn, there's 6 things. Which one would you pick and why? and now you're going to
Yeah.
pick up language too. So I'm a big one of yes. By the way, I want to take that course, the AI, how to get my AI to understand a little
Okay,
bit better
cool. Yeah.
how to program our AI. As you know, with
Yes.
our actualized recovery property and our approach, the brain first approach, I think that's valuable. But I'm a firm believer also of getting out of the thought of you and your team having the answers, throwing it out there in the world. I am always surprised at what comes back when we do polls. Always surprised.
So not the echo chamber.
Not the echo chamber.
You're saying like,
well, my Facebook's like echo
right.
chamber. Your Facebook, you get response. Mine's pretty quiet. How about?
Oh yeah, and people are not shy about providing their opinion on something. Trust us.
But some of it you don't pay attention to, or you look at it and go, no. But some of it is really valuable.
Yeah. The other thing,
the title of my book decided through a social media poll because I was bouncing back and forth between a few of them, and the podcast revolution wasn't even in my top 2, and it was overwhelmingly the winner on several different surveys and polls on social media. So the people spoke, so we ended up naming it the podcast revolution.
And that goes back to the community, right? This is creating a community and leveraging all these great ideas from social media. When you said creating content too, I think something that was really successful for Dave and I on our podcast was we actually had a whiteboard behind the camera, and he and I would take 20 minutes before we recorded and we write out bullet points of just conversation. Because I like what you said, it shouldn't be scripted. It should be really flowing. To engage somebody, it has to be a topic that you know well, that's interesting. So that was how we did the flow.
And identifying, and there's different ways to do this. Identifying people's pain points. If somebody is going to be a coach, whether that's a nutrition coach or a recovery coach or a financial coach, what are the things that keep people up at 2:30 in the morning on this specific niche of your program? So, for example, for moms who would phone us, one of the phrases they use is, "I'm at my wit's end." Well, that went on the board. It's a great phrase. I would never have come up with
use
it.
Their language,
but over and over. So it's important to address that, and we would have it there. So not just working on our memory. So talk to me though, Nate, about technology, and is it possible for people to do this on a really tight shoestring budget when they're starting out? And how?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best podcasts start with an iPhone and a set of headphones, earbuds. If you have like an iPhone 12 or later, they have really great microphones and audio inner workings. So I actually suggest that you try to record a few just using your phone and the earbuds that come with an iPhone. Now, wired earphones, not the AirPods or whatever they're called, because Bluetooth can disconnect and it's staticky and whatnot. But if you use the wired Apple earbuds with your iPhone, go into your voice notes and start recording and see what comes out. See if, you can even hold a conversation for 30 minutes, testing these things that are important as a podcast host, especially potentially an interview style show. So do not spend any money until you are in this planning and production phase, and that you're certain that, you're going to get a show on the air. Once you do get to that point, I have several bundles that I recommend. A standard bundle, a premium bundle based on your budget, what you're willing to spend and what your budget is. But even the beginner sort of standard budget, we can get you all in for less than $150. And this is high quality podcast equipment that you're going to sound, crisp and clear. But again, don't spend any money until you're sure that, this is going to be a for sure thing. And, you're in that planning phase. The iPhone is a great microphone.
That's great advice.
Well, we've got the what do we got here? The
Yeti.
The Yeti. I love my Yeti.
We've got our Yeti. Yeah, they are pretty awesome.
The Yeti's
one.
The Yeti's perfect for it's perfect for you guys because it's a condenser mic, so it picks up more than one voice. Or like if you were around a conference table, a condenser mic is good for that. So that's perfect for you guys.
Well, when we were first started, we were advised by our then podcast production people, and we bought all sorts of equipment, and we both had our own mic. But I got to tell you, for a fraction of the cost would be the Yeti mic.
Yeah.
So we should.
Right.
I wish we had an affiliate link here. Buy here. But talk to me about how do people? Okay, I record it. I mean, do I use a service? For example, this right here, Emergo TV is on StreamYard. Is there a service that they should use? And how do they get it published so other people in the world can listen to them?
I recommend Zoom. Zoom is free. Sometimes Zoom gets a bad rap from other podcasters because the audio isn't great, but there are some settings in Zoom that you can play with to get really quality audio. So Zoom is free. I always recommend that, especially if you're starting out and, getting your bearings behind the microphone. After that, once you have your finalized footage or your MP3 or depending whether it's audio or video podcasting, you need a distribution platform. So these are platforms like Buzzsprout, Podbean, Spotify for podcasters. There are specific podcast distribution platforms, and you'll need to set up a profile on one of those. Some are free, some are paid. You get better analytics and better features, based on whichever one you decide to go with. But that is what will enable you to distribute your podcasts to all of the big networks, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So you're uploading it to only one platform, and then they distribute it to all the big names for you. So there is a bit of setup involved, and applying your show notes and your show description and your social media links and all of that good stuff. But once you're all set up, really it's just as simple as weekly uploading your finalized MP3 file and distributing it to all the big networks.
That's good advice. Now, Nate, when we first started, in 2018, 2019, I think it's 2000, I don't know, one of those years, pre-pandemic. One of the things then was the statistic was most podcasters drop off who new podcasters about show 5 or 6. And I was at this larger conference, and I said, okay, what's your tips on making sure people don't get past 5 or 6? And the guy made a brilliant statement. He said, record more than 5 or 6. And I started laughing. The whole audience laughed. But his thought was to create a schedule where in the first week or two, when you're excited and you're in the flow, create 8 of them or create 10 of them, or at least create 4 to 6, so that you are not pushed that, oh my God, I've got a podcast tomorrow and I didn't record one. So you have this bank, and keep the bank or the library as you're recording. So you have a minimum 1 month. So record 4 to 5. That gives you a month breather to record another 3 or 4 or 5. And he said, you got to keep them in the bank. If you don't, that's when you risk things dropping off. Do you agree with this as a tip?
Yes, that's brilliant. Yeah, I recommend 10 as well. So having a bank of 10. I actually recommend launching your show with 4 episodes so that it creates this sort of bingeable library of episodes, then you've got 6, but we're not
Hold on,
stopping
back up,
recording at any.
back up,
Yeah.
back up. What do you mean start with? You mean record 4 and launch 4 in the same day?
Yes. So you're launching your show with 4 episodes on, like, let's say we're launching the show on May 3rd. 4 episodes go up on May 3rd. To create bingeable, a library of episodes. If somebody comes across your show and loves it, then they have 4 episodes to listen to. And not only is it upping your downloads now by 75%, it gives them an option of 4 episodes to listen to and fall in love with as one. So that's what all of my clients do, is launch with 4 episodes. But then you have the 6 remaining episodes, yes, exactly what that gentleman suggested. It puts you 6 weeks ahead. You're not crunched for time. You're feeling anxious and stressed, and you're continuing to record all the while. So even if there is a week where you're under the weather or on vacation, okay, we're chipping away. We're still 4 weeks ahead at all times. So we never try to dip below being 4 weeks ahead on the show.
I mean, that's great advice. That's peace of mind.
Yeah.
Peace of mind. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What about scheduling a time, like not recording, but like what about scheduling on releasing your podcast? Is there a better day? Is there a better time? What if I just release it whenever I want? What do you coach or recommend for people there?
I found that a particular day of the week is better for numbers in any way. What I will say, what does matter is being consistent with the day and time that you release episodes. So if your shows come out Wednesday at 8 a.m., make damn sure that you're releasing an episode every Wednesday at 8 a.m. because people now are expecting it. They're coming back for it, and there's no quicker way to lose an engaged listener than by them showing up and you not having a new episode. So just stick to a day and time and stay consistent. But I have not found that a particular day is more advantageous.
I totally agree with you, Nate. There's about 6 people that I follow consistently, and I am so excited. I know exactly when their podcast is coming out, and I love it when I get the little information thing saying, here it is, new podcast.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, Nate's totally right on.
Nate, before we wind up this section and our podcast or our live stream TV podcast thing today, before we wind everything up, what is a couple common mistakes everybody beginners seem to make, and then what are some of the areas that experts could improve on too? But first of all, let's start with beginners. What are one or two
myths?
One or two of the common mistakes people make?
Spending, breaking the bank on equipment prior to launching the show, and then, it not going anywhere. So do that planning, do that practice, do your research prior to spending any money. And I think what we just mentioned is having inconsistent posting schedules. And I would say experts or the bigwigs, I think sometimes people can get too far removed from their demographic of listener, like their core audience, their target audience. Sometimes they get a little bit too far removed from their audience to kind of understand those pain points, that they're trying to relieve, or those questions that they're trying to answer. it comes out, disingenuous if someone isn't really having those same struggles.
Nate, again, I wholeheartedly agree. One of the fellows that I follow went off-roading and went away from his normal, very uplifting, very calming, and went political for 3 or 4 episodes. And it was shocking because I don't want to listen to this. I don't listen to you because you're not political. And then, so I gave it some time. There was a couple of episodes I didn't listen to, and then he's back on track again. So I wholeheartedly agree. Like, know what your niche is. Stay with that audience, nurture that audience, deliver to that audience. Yes.
I'll try and make this my last question. We'll see.
You're in Dave's sweet spot.
If somebody's wanting to start a podcast, and let's just say they're a recovery coach and they want to coach anybody in recovery, or women in recovery, men in recovery, but they want to do something with that. How do you find, or how can they find guests if they want to do an interview style podcast?
So this is how the Sobriety Diaries started, because I found myself in the same predicament, really. Take to social media. You can find hundreds, probably thousands of Facebook groups of podcast guest exchange situations. So hosts looking for guests, or people that are looking to appear on podcasts in a particular niche. So do your research on Facebook. Look for those Facebook groups who are whatever way that you're looking to match up, and post in those groups. Say, I'm a new podcast host in women's recovery, and I'm looking for women who are willing to share their story publicly. It helps if you can maybe attach a little video, maybe of a trailer or a video of yourself speaking, so that they can kind of get a feel for your personality or interview style. So Facebook groups is an amazing resource for that.
You got anything else for Nate?
No, I just going to say, Nate, we did some summits last year, 3 summits.
Yeah.
What you're saying is 100% true. I went fishing in Facebook and just found people that I thought looked really interesting and would add to the community. I reached out to them. Almost every one of them said yes. And they were great guests.
We did learn
people love to talk about themselves too.
But we learned you still have to vet them. You still.
Oh yeah.
Like there was a couple.
Have to know what your audience.
Yeah, of course.
There's a couple of people that did not fit.
Right.
And so we politely thanked them. But for the most part, it was a great place to get them.
Yeah, so, and we made some really good friends and connections that way too.
So Nate, you got it up there, podcast, nate.com, if anybody's interested in coaching or production or anything regarding podcast. I can't believe the $150 to get it started and launched. And if that's the case, every coach should do this.
Yeah.
Every coach should do this.
Sure. Yes.
And really become the authority in your either your area or your niche within the coaching ranks.
Yeah.
And you want to stand out amongst other coaches, have a podcast.
That's thing right. Too, we could take the content from our podcast, turn it into a transcript, and take those transcripts and put them into articles and blogs too.
Blogs, articles, posts.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So many options for repurposing the podcast content.
Mm-hmm.
Nate, thanks for hanging out with us, and we're going to shut her down for the day.
Thank you, guys.
Emergo TV. Thanks so much for gifting your knowledge and helping others both in the world of recovery on your personal journey, as well as your great expertise in podcasting. And folks, it is
my
worth
pleasure.
It. If you get the book, The Podcast Revolution, inside, Nate's got a great offer inside. He's got the get your free exclusive offer to download the 6-week production and content calendar today. That alone is worth the book price. So
Yes,
there you go.
that is.
It's a great foundation piece for people launching into the business.
Discover the brain-first approach to recovery with Emergo Academy and join our Recovery Club. Surround yourself with a supportive community free of guilt and shame and gain access to coaches and recovery experts with lived experience. Dave and Susan Kenney, co-founders of Emergo Academy, have developed these methodologies over the last 15 years. And as a member of the Recovery Club, you get exclusive access and resources to achieve your recovery goals and relieve the suffering. Stay up to date with live group meetings, Emergo TV updates, and 24/7 access to the private Recovery Club. Visit emergoacademy.com and join the Recovery Club today. Hey there, are you enjoying this live stream? Well, I'm the one that helped Dave and Susan bring Emergo TV to life, and I could help you do the same.